Welcome to the Tradie Wife Life podcast, brought to you by Tradies in Business, where we talk to tradie wives about their goals, their challenges, their hopes and dreams, and how their trade business can help with that. Welcome back to yet another episode of Tradie Wife Life, where we talk all things tradies in business and tradie wives in business and career changes and working together with your spouse. And then we talk about every avenue that you can possibly think of when it comes to running a trade business. Today, I am joined by a real tradie wife. I feel like we need this secret club where we have really expensive handbags and we drink the very best champagne and we all talk about all of the things at our lunches every Friday. Wouldn't that be lovely? Alex,
That'd be nice.
joining me.
Thanks for having me, Nick.
Alex, first of all, I just know that you'd be along to those Friday lunches with me and you and I would have a great time with you or other.
No doubt about it.
But can you tell us, you've had quite a long projection within the business, given that your relationship with your lovely husband, Scott, has been such a long one. Do you want to tell us a bit of your backstory?
It has. So I am Alex and I am based in Canberra. The definition of a tradie wife is a bit different for me because the business that my husband and I run isn't actually what you would classify as a normal trade business, I guess. My husband is a building certifier. So we're the people who turn up onto the building site and tell a builder basically what they can and can't do and tell the homeowner what they can and can't build. So my husband has a background as a carpenter and then a licensed builder and has transitioned down the path of being a building certifier. We have been together since the start of his trade journey. We've been together for 18 years. We were high school sweethearts, met at school, and we ended up getting married at the same school in the chapel there. We've been together for a long time. So I have seen the journey from the $5 an hour apprentice sweeping the floorboards all the way through to managing, a very well-running business now, thanks to the help of you guys.
Lifting.
Yes.
Alex, did Scott always want to be in or around the trade? So as you said, he started as a carpenter and then went on to be a builder. And from there, he's made the transition to being a certifier. Smart man, can I say? He figured out getting off the tools really early.
Very quickly.
Yeah.
Yes, especially in freezing cold Canberra, those 7 o'clock mornings on roofs and things like that, I can't imagine would be everyone's cup of tea.
And he's still out there, so
Yes.
he's quite off the tools. But yeah, was it something that he always wanted to do right from the very beginning?
Always, I think. Scott, for somebody who wasn't a fan of studying or a fan of school, he has just like non-stop studied to get to where he is. Hands-on, very hands-on, practical-based individual. We went to a school that had a really strong academic focus, and Scott was actually the first student at the school to do a school-based apprenticeship. The school didn't know what a school-based apprenticeship was until he came along and went, I don't want to do university, I want to do something with my hands. And they had to scavenge around and work out how to set up a school-based apprenticeship for him. Our daughter is about to start at that same school next year, and things are very, very different for her in the future as to what it's looked like to be accepted into a trade-based role. But yeah, back when he started, it wasn't something that was looked upon favourably by the school that we went to. But yeah, definitely 100%. He's been wanting to do work with his hands and be outside and not be stuck behind a desk. And still now to this day, certifying is the perfect, happy medium of that. He can be out on site dealing with builders and architects and trades, and then he can still be in the office and keep out of the freezing cold.
Which sounds really attractive. What we just spoke about for yesterday morning.
Yes.
Alex, I wonder then, given that you chose a very different life path in your career, was there ever an opportunity or was there ever a time where you guys were at odds with your careers, or did it always just work for you?
So Scott, I guess because he started his career so early at 17 being an apprentice, and I was still at school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do when I finished school. I just did kind of what the school suggested I did and got my UAI, my entry to uni mark, and tried to work out the path that I wanted to travel myself. I actually originally studied sport tourism and event management. My aim was to work for the International Olympic Committee and gallivant around the world following professional athletes and organising major sporting events. And I guess a time came where I had finished my uni and Scott was finished his carpentry apprenticeship and he had just about finished his builder's license. And there was that conversation as to whether we were going to stay in Canberra or whether we were going to jump ship and go and do something else. And we ended up buying a block of land out in northwest Canberra, and Scott built us our first house. So during that time, he transitioned into a traineeship to be a building certifier with a large company here in Canberra. And really, this is where we've stayed. And now having our family and our 2 kids here and running our business and having both sets of grandparents within 5 minutes of us, it's been the biggest blessing in disguise. That's not to say that I won't be heading to Brisbane way to join you, Nick, in 2032 for a couple of weeks to stamp out my place in my dream of being a part of the Olympic movement.
I've already reserved the bedrooms for you so that you and the whole family can fit.
Yeah, we're just going to park the office for a couple of weeks so we can head to Brisbane to live out my dream while Scott is living out his on a daily basis.
That's a fantastic segue. In fact, I think Warwick could have written that segue, as a matter of fact. So I'm going to go down that road now that you've opened it up. It's a big thing giving up your career to transition into a different career. And I really want to be clear, as I think I do every time, choosing to work alongside your partner in a trade business is a new career. And I don't think many of us think about it that way when we first jump in. We generally start talking about how we're going to help. We'll just help out with the books, or I just do the books, or I just do the social media, or I just do this or that, rather than understanding that this is actually another career path. And I know you, like some of our other ladies who had very independent, strong, very different careers, have really found it to be a big question to answer when the time came. And I wondered for you, what was, well, first of all, maybe tell us a little bit about your career and at what point you made that decision, and then what making that decision was like for you. What was the experience like?
So after I did my undergraduate degree, I was working for the ACT Academy of Sport, doing a role really business support related, and I was looking for a new opportunity. So I applied for a position as a primary school business manager. I picked up that role, which was actually, funnily enough, at the primary school that I went to. So I was very familiar with it. And I was in that role for 5 years. During that time, I completed my master's in business admin. That was something that I was really driven towards, being able to say that I was basically capable of being the CEO of an organisation, and I had the qualifications to back me on that. So I decided to finish my master's and fall pregnant. I'd achieved the qualification, and now I needed to do something with it. But it was also a great transition point for Scott and I to start a family. So we did. I think I knew once I was ready to go on maternity leave that I wasn't going to go back to that role. Scott had taken on running the company, originally started as a partnership, but very quickly bought out the previous business partner and went out on his own. And when he went out on his own, I guess for me, it was the fact that he had never run a business before. And here I was sitting there with the qualification and the knowledge, and having been the business manager of a primary school of over 600 kids and being able to say that I can do that. The problem was I had a baby and we had COVID and we were trying to keep a roof over our heads with a brand new business. And so it's been a really slow transition for me to come into the company. Still now it's still trying to work out where my role sits and how I want it to look, because of obviously the need to be there for my littlies. And so, yeah, it's been a real slow transition for me. Something that I am very grateful for, the opportunity that we have this flexibility that I can do this. Working in the public service just wouldn't have been able to, I guess, provide me with the lifestyle that I need, particularly during COVID. That was just, having a small baby during COVID was pretty much a nightmare. And the thought of going back into the workforce during that time was, just too much to bear. So I'm very grateful for the opportunity we have to run our own business. And I think that, like you say, it's a different career. It is so different because you basically instantly become in charge and you are liable for absolutely everything, and you can't pass that on to anybody else. Your call is the call to make, and that's what affects the end result. So yeah, it's definitely a new type of career, one that you wouldn't just do a 9 to 5 job for. This is not a 9 to 5 job.
You kind of can't put a description on it either. I know we talk a lot about giving yourselves a role, creating a role and having a position description so we avoid some of that double up and the opportunity for conflict that
Yes.
always comes when we work with a partner. It certainly can help to find some of those. And yet it's not a role that you could compare to an outside role because
Not at all.
you are doing it. And I'd like to take my hat off to all mums in this case. Not only are you doing it and being a mum, we tend to be more heavily, well, I've got to be careful how I word this because I don't want to alienate anyone because we all do it very differently. Coming from my own experience, I'll talk about it coming out of working, up to 70 hours a week in the pharmaceutical world with 2 children who I didn't get to be a big part of their lives, even though I was the sole parent for a lot of
Mm,
that time. I still didn't get to be part of their lives a lot because I had to abdicate that responsibility to
mm,
childcare or to the school. And that was a choice that I made to
mm,
have the lifestyle that I had. I'm still very happy that I made the choices that I did. And then there was a time in which I made another choice, and that was to be a part of a building
mm,
business. And that was a very different role in that the responsibility was it was also very heavy, like my responsibility in pharmacy had been. But I was also now still solo parent for those children. And I felt like I needed to be more involved in their everyday life, which is another whole full-time job on its own. Now, I'm not dismissing how hard I worked as their parent and what I did or how I contributed when I worked the 70 hours a week. It was just very different. And
mm.
so I guess what I'm trying to get across here is when I first thought about taking that opportunity for a bit of flexibility, I thought, oh, this is going to be so much easier. Life's going to be lovely. And it just wasn't like that at all.
Certainly is not. Certainly is not. As I just said to you, before we started here, my husband ran in the door 2 seconds before I needed to be out the door to come and meet with you so we could tag in our 5-month-old to have a nap. And he's just run from his last inspection and got to me so that we can tag in so I can come and do this. Yeah, you say flexibility. I think a lot of people get into it
Yeah.
for the perception of flexibility. And yeah, of course, that is there, but also it comes with so many more restrictions. Um, you know, Taking a sick leave day to look after your kid, well, that'd be great if you had just a normal 9 to 5 job. But as soon as you're running your own business, it's like, oh, okay, now that meeting's got to be pushed back, or, can't meet with that client, or whatever ramifications are going to happen.
Yeah, and quite frequently in early run businesses, and in fact businesses that have been around for 20 years in some cases, you don't get paid for having a day off when you're sick. And
That's
so it
right.
becomes really tempting to push through, and so we lose the boundaries. I think that's one of the big problems.
100%. 100%. And I think we lose them because we don't stick to them ourselves.
Yeah.
We're always putting our business first, because at the end of the day, if we don't put our business first, we don't have a roof over our head, or we don't have the
That's right.
income coming in. So yeah, we want the flexibility, but we always put ourselves last.
Yeah, nothing changes, unfortunately. I feel like I've just put off a whole bunch of other ladies out there that were considering getting into business. Let's talk about some of the perks because it's not all terrible. There's some great things.
No, it's fantastic. I mean, we have the most amazing team who work for us. They're incredible. They have held us up on so many occasions. It's unbelievable. And to be a part of something where you have other people who value what you do as much as,
Mm,
like, value what they do as much as you do, is
mm,
like it's just so rewarding to go into the office every day and have this team that want to help
mhm.
the business to grow and progress, because they know that that will help them grow and progress as well. I think another perk is being your own boss. I think is something that a lot of people get into this because they want to be their own boss. Of course, there are the negatives associated with that. Like I said, it all falls on you at the end of the day. But to be your own boss and not have to report to anybody and send the text messages in the morning saying, sorry, my kids are sick, I can't come in today, I'll have to catch up on the work later, or just those kind of things. I think, yeah, they're amazing. And obviously once your business starts turning over a profit, that's where things just start to, things start to get a little bit easier because you know that what you're doing is working. And more often than not, that profit can come and enhance other elements of your life.
Yeah, it's so true. I guess that's where the lifestyle comes in. And,
Hmm.
so many people that we talk to early on in their journey, they haven't quite reached that stage of turning over
Mm.
enough profit so that life becomes comfortable and we have
Yeah.
choice. And I think that's the end game for most of us. That's what we're in business for, the opportunity to be making ourselves money instead of potentially making an organization or somebody else money.
Yep.
And I think together as a duo, we have a great opportunity to do so than we do when there's only one or the other of us.
Hmm.
And we see the opposite to be true very frequently as well. We work with many people where it's just the tradie we're working with, and the tradie wife has continued to pursue her career because what works for them. And I think sometimes that comes back down to then the conversations around how do you work together as a couple? It is not
Hmm.
easy. It is very challenging. And I wonder if you've got any insights that you'd be comfortable to share, Alex.
Yes, 100%. So, as I mentioned to you, Scott is the tradie. He is the one with the technical knowledge. He understands the rules and the regulations and the legislation and all the rest of it. And I'm the one that knows how to run a business. But when you've got two people who are very ambitious and very driven individuals, and you're both wanting the best out of your company, it can get pretty tricky when you're trying to navigate who is responsible for what. So, I think it started off very slowly with me being involved and slowly dripping in. And then all of a sudden, I was like heavily involved and in the office all the time and really crossing over into Scott's technical territory as much as he was crossing into the business side of things. So, yeah, we've had to sit down and have the conversation, what's Scott's job, what's my job, so we can make sure that it's very clearly defined and what are the things that are non-negotiables that we both have to agree on as the business owner. We've also had a bit of an identity, I guess, shift in the sense of the business started out as Scott's. He was the one that was in the partnership, and then all of a sudden it became ours on paper. But from a practical perspective, I was still on maternity leave. So I wasn't actually executing, running the business and setting it up. And that slow transition into me becoming more and more involved has taken, yeah, a lot of backwards and forwards, a lot of revisiting who is responsible for what. And, I think the big thing is making each of us accountable for what we said we were going to be responsible for. Because I think there's so many times where you might just think, oh no, he's handling that or she's handling that, and then all of a sudden it hasn't been done, and you're going, oh God, who was actually responsible for doing that
Yeah.
3 weeks later when it hasn't been done?
It's I think it's perfectly put. It can be really challenging to navigate. I think the other big thing comes with that identity shift in that it's no longer the tradies business on their own. It's now a business that you share. And that can be really hard to navigate in that we're asking them to give up some control over what it
Mm.
is that they do. Now the benefit is there for them because it releases a lot of pressure. It means that they're being supported in a different way. It means that they have the opportunity for two of you to bounce off rather than it just being that one person carrying that load all on their own. And typically and understandably, it can be very hard to let go of some of that
Mm.
responsibility. How did you guys navigate that? I know Scott to be a very fair and a very caring person, and he is very driven. You're absolutely right. You said it
Mm.
earlier. And I can imagine at times that it would have been quite challenging and there would have been things that he hadn't thought about before the two of you making this decision to do this together. And there's a chance for massive conflict in those times.
100%. 100%. Has been a whirlwind for us to navigate this. I'm very headstrong about my understanding and my experience in running a business and the background that I have. And he's very headstrong in how he wants the business to be and what he wants it to look like. So yeah, we've had our fair share of challenges in navigating it. The big thing for us has always been also the team around us and making sure that we have the right team to support us, because there's no way we could run this show on our own. There's not a chance. We've grown substantially in the not very long that we've been running the business, and that's always been a challenge for us, is finding the right team to fit for both of us, the right
Mm.
team members. And we've had our fair share of staffing changes, and yeah, I think to be supported by such a great team makes what we're doing really worthwhile. And it, like you said, it allows us to actually share the load.
Mm.
Once upon a time, it was only Scott. Then all of a sudden, he had a staff member, and then I came along, and and that workload is able to be sort of shared amongst the team. But yeah, it's by all means no smooth sailing, easy road. It's been a challenge. It's been a big challenge, and I don't think we would be where we are if we hadn't have actually had those challenges, because we've had to face some pretty tough things, and being able to navigate those together. To be fair, we've had two small children in the time that we've run our business, and that in itself, learning to become parents is the hard enough task while you're trying to run your own business at the same time.
Yeah, and throw COVID in the mix. I'm sure it
Oh
was
yeah, there was a bit of that too.
Alex, what do you not enjoy about sharing a business with your husband?
I don't enjoy not having the time to talk about the business.
Ah,
So we really struggle with finding the time to focus on our business. So joining you and it has been a game changer for us to actually make us sit down and focus on the business. So we both try and get to as many sessions as we can, because we know that committing that time will allow us to continue to grow the business. But really, by the time we get home of an afternoon and navigate our kids and get them to bed, and it gets the end of the day and we're exhausted and all the rest of it, yeah, that's probably our biggest challenge, is actually setting aside the time to work on the business, move in that strategic direction. I have a very strategic mind. That's what my training and qualifications have led me to do.
mhm.
So for me, that is the priority. But for Scott, the priority is meeting the demands of the clients on the ground, meeting the demands of the team on a daily basis. And we have to really navigate how we align those two things to be able to keep that business moving forward and making changes and making progress.
So how do you do that whilst keeping the boundaries in place for your relationship?
So we have every second Thursday morning a 2-hour period where we have my mother-in-law come and drop our daughter at childcare, and we put the baby to bed, and we sit down, and we've got an agenda of 2 or 3 topics that we need to get through in that time. And we basically just sideline everything else and concentrate for that period of time. That allows me over the fortnight to generate what it is that I need to talk to Scott about. It also allows Scott to offline himself and know that he purely only has to focus on the business for that
Mm.
period of time. And then I can go away and continue to work on whatever progress needs to be made. So yeah, we've really had to just align the time in our calendar where we don't have any other competing demands to be able to have those conversations. Having them at night over the dining room table while you're trying to feed a 4-year-old and put a 5-month-old to bed doesn't work, and it's just not achievable for us. So we've had to navigate it in other ways.
Okay, so that leads me to another question. In regards to your personal time and your relationship, have you managed to quarantine a similar kind of space for the two of you?
Not very well, no.
It's always one that loses, isn't there?
Going from 1 to 2 kids, that just alleviates any
Yeah.
time you have to yourself. So yeah, look, we were doing really well before we had our little boy, because we were able to navigate. One would take
Mm.
the daughter, and the other one would be able to go and do their own thing. We're slowly getting back into that now that he's 5, almost 6 months old. Like I said, we're very lucky to have both sets of grandparents around, so that does help. Scott's also set aside time in his calendar on a Wednesday morning where he can just catch up, whether that's going and getting a haircut or going and sitting in a cafe and getting his work done or whatever the case may be. He just is sidelined on a Wednesday morning so that he can actually catch up and keep on top of things, because
Mm.
otherwise there's just he's just pulled in so many directions. There's so many plates spinning, as he says.
He does. He says it a lot, actually.
Yep.
And rightly so, because he's got a fair bit on his plate. How else do you get time
We
for yourself?
haven't mentioned the house renovation yet.
No, I was just how do you get time for yourself then? Given that you are supporting Scott, you're mothering 2 children, you also have your own career. How do you get time to go and have your hair done or to catch up with your girlfriends or
Book it in Scott's calendar a month in advance.
there's only one way to do it
Like
really.
doing this session with you, I had to pull him aside and say, I really want to do this opportunity with Nick, and can we make it work in your calendar? And so we were able to schedule us something in to be able to make that work for us. we're a one-man show in the sense of Scott is our only certifier. He's the only one who's licensed to be able to do all of the inspections for the company. So we're very reliant on his time to be out on site doing those things, which puts restrictions in its place for what, we need him to be available for outside of just doing those inspections. So yeah, for us, it's all about pre-planning. It's well in advance having these things booked in. Like I had to go to him 2 weeks ago and say, I need my hair done before I've got a hens party on the weekend. Can you please give me an hour of the afternoon and come home early so that I can get that done?
Absolutely.
But yeah, I think for me at the moment, I'm juggling working and having a baby and trying to get work done during naps and things like that. So I think my time will come next year. He will go into childcare a couple of days a week, and so I'll be able to have a little bit more flexibility. And our daughter starts school, so I think at the moment I'm just in the trenches of mum life, and we're just both trying to navigate running a business, about to renovate and extend our house, and also be parents.
It's a fun journey, isn't it? This business parenthood thing that we do. Now,
Yes.
Alex, I would like to bring up holidays. You and Scott had a very different idea of what a holiday looked like when we first started working with you both.
Yes.
I wonder if you could share what the difference was between the two of you and what they look like now and what you had to do to get from A to B, because it's very different for you guys now.
So we would never take a holiday when we first started out the business. Scott was adamant that he had to be available 24/7 to his clients. And there were some instances where he didn't need to be available 24/7, but the clients felt that they could take advantage of that situation. So it was a very slow burn to get holidays to happen. I think we started off, my first dangle of the carrot to go on a holiday was to take him to the Gold Coast to the V8 supercars for a couple of days. That was my look. Can we go on a family holiday? And guess what? I'll throw in a apartment that overlooks the racetrack so that you can sit on the balcony while the baby sleeps and watch it. So that was our first venture into a family holiday whilst running the business. And I think that might have been almost around when we started with you guys. And then the next one was we went to Port Douglas in the middle of the year last year for a week. And that was really successful because, like I said to you before, the team that we had behind us. So it's taken a lot for us to get the right team behind us and for Scott to have the confidence in our team that he can actually walk away from the office. And then we spent 2 weeks on Hamilton Island for our 10th wedding anniversary in January. And basically, we just communicated to our clients and said, you know what, we're human and we need to have a break. And so we're going to take some leave. Nobody died, nothing burnt down. The world continued to function while we were away. Bless Scott, we've got a lot of work on our plate at the moment, and coming to conference at the end of October, I said, can we take a couple of extra days on the back end so that we can stay in Adelaide and have a family holiday? And I didn't win that one by coming back.
You've done great just to get to conference even at this
Yeah,
point.
that's right. Well, we're bringing the whole entourage with us, so
It can be really, really challenging to travel and let go. And I think, look, I'll out myself. I'm not great at letting go. I'm getting much, much better. I'm very fortunate to have a business partner that not only carries the load, won't let me interfere. I'm very grateful for that because I find it very hard to switch off. But when I need that support, he can jump in and do that. You can't do that in a couple run business because you're generally going away together. Sure, occasionally there might be girls' weekend or a boys' weekend. And for the most part, when you take holidays, you're doing it together. So it does require a lot of extra work to ensure that the structure of the business can hold while you're away.
Yep.
Or you've got the finances in place so that you can just shut down for the week or the 2 weeks that you're away. Neither option is easy. There's no option there that it is easier than the other. And unfortunately, we talk to lots of people that only shut down over the Christmas period, which is expensive. Everyone's exhausted. The family usually doesn't even want to go away because we want to be close to home and our families for Christmas. And so if that's the only opportunity you're taking in a whole year to get away, it can be really hard to break that cycle. And so for many of our clients, we try to get them to start with a long weekend. Just take an extra day on the long weekend. You're not allowed to work. There are rules in place that mean you're not allowed to work on that Monday or that Friday or whatever day it might be. How about you tack on one extra and see what that looks like? And it's a great test for them. But what we find
Yes.
typically is all of our systems fall over because we haven't thought about what that structure needs to look like when we're away. I don't believe
Hmm.
that actually happened for you guys. I think that because of your mindset, Alex, you guys did a lot of work to ensure that that didn't happen for you, which meant it was a far more successful trip for Scott and he could then
Hmm.
relax and understand he didn't
Hmm.
need to be available. But that
That's
still had
right.
to grow over time, even with all of that support that he had, that still had to grow over
Yeah.
time. The first holiday, he was still answering the phone. The second holiday,
Yep.
the third holiday, he's done really quite well. So I
And the
think,
best thing for us was when we had our son in March, Scott took almost 2 weeks off and the world didn't fall apart. And, I asked for basically 4 days of his support without having answering the phone and those kind of things. And sure, he touched base with the team, but yeah, nothing fell apart. And that was, as good as having to take a holiday in terms of being away from the business.
yeah, and very, very important for all of you. Now,
Mm.
Alex, we talked about what you don't like about running the business as a couple. What do you like about running the business together?
Uh, the autonomy that we have over our own lives
Mm,
and being able to make the decisions for ourselves.
mm.
We're not making decisions that are somebody else is putting restrictions in place around what we can and can't do, where we can do what we want when we want and how we want, I guess is the best way to put it. We can't always do what we want when we want and how we want to do it, but the ambition is there that we would like it to be like that. But yeah, I think that's being your own boss. You can't do anything better than that. Like it just the freedom that it provides, I think, is one of the really big reasons why we've stuck with this. We both like to succeed. We're both very driven individuals. As my parents always say to me, can you two just slow down for a minute? Just take a break. And no, no, we can't.
Can't see it
We're
happening.
it's always looking for what's next, what's the
Mm.
next challenge, what's the next thing that we can do. And I think we just, yeah, we want to, I think we want to create the lives that we dream of having. And we're very ambitious in doing that.
I have no doubt you will succeed. Alex, what's next for ACT certification?
We are desperately on the hunt for a building certifier, and I'm going to use my chance to plug
Please
it.
do.
Um,
We should
we
probably talk Canberra up first
we
before we
certainly
talk
should.
about it.
Yep, it's no. We are on the hunt for a building certifier. So we have tried every possible avenue that we can think of to encourage somebody to move to Canberra to work with us. And we are still trying to find that needle in that haystack. We've got an incredible team behind us that we have built up so well over the past 2 years. We've got some incredible clients that we do some amazing work for. So yeah, the next thing for ACT certification is getting another certifier on our books and coming and working with us and helping us grow even further. Because at the moment, growth without another certifier is a tricky thing to navigate. Because there's only so much of Scott that can go around, and there's only so many slab inspections and pre-sheet inspections that he can do in a day. So yeah, somebody else to come and join the fun would be amazing.
Alex, if people want to find out more about your very illustrious job opportunity, how do they find you guys? Because I feel like we've really got to throw this.
We
message out.
seriously do, don't we? We seriously do. Just head on to our website. We are not far off putting another advert up to hopefully recruit for somebody. We are just really keen to grow as a business and have somebody come and join us in that growth.
I'll make sure all the links are in the show notes.
Thank
Alex,
you.
thanks so much for joining me today. It was an absolute pleasure.
Pleasure, pleasure, pleasure.
And for making time. And I must jump onto Voxer and thank Scott for supporting you so that we could do this together this afternoon too.
No doubt he's on the phone working anyway.
I have no doubt at all. Thank you so much, Alex.
My pleasure.